Hello, my name is Marianne Brush, and I currently serve as the Communications and Marketing Supervisor for Romeo Community Schools. It is my pleasure to host this podcast today. This is the second of two podcasts that are providing important information for our voters about the millage renewals that the Romeo Community Schools Board of Education has placed on the February 27, 2024 presidential primary ballot. This conversation is going to be specific to the non-homestead millage renewal proposal. Next, I would like to introduce our panel of speakers for today, Dr. Todd Robinson and Executive Director of Business Services, Vicki Lasky. Dr. Robinson, I understand there is an obligation for the district to put this important millage renewal in front of the voters as directed by law. What can you share about that?
Yes. With the change to Proposal A back in 1994 for how schools are funded in Michigan, that put into place the requirement for all districts to levy 18 mills on non-homestead properties to support the annual foundation grant we receive per student from the state of Michigan. If we do not keep this millage in place, the state will not make up that loss of funding. Our non-homestead millage will be expiring next year, so we need to seek renewal from the voters.
The non-homestead ballot proposal is the renewal of an existing millage. Vicki, what can you tell us about that?
The non-homestead renewal is to renew the previously voter-approved 19.5 mills. This renewal request is for 5 years. July of 2024 will be our last levy for the current non-homestead millage. We intentionally paired the renewal of the non-homestead millage with our sinking fund renewal because they have the same term, and it is also on the February 27th ballot. And we've paired them for consistency and ease for our voters.
Is this a millage that all school districts have?
Yes. Unlike our other renewal, as I mentioned a little bit in your first question, in order for us to receive the full per pupil foundation grant from the state of Michigan, we have to have this millage and keep it active. You'll find districts renewing for different lengths and time, and some small differences in the actual mills, but it's important to note that no one can levy more than 18 mills in any given year, and you can go out for, I think, up to 10 years, Vicki, at the longest term. I believe the law allows for that. With our growing community and conversations with our financial advisors, we feel renewing in 5-year terms makes the most sense for us.
With a successful renewal of this millage, how much revenue does that generate for the district?
Currently, our non-homestead renewal millage generates about $9.8 million, or 12% of our general fund annually.
And how does the district decide where the funds will go from this millage?
Well, because it's part of our state funding, it goes directly into the general fund budget each year, and it ultimately supports our operating expenses. And we make decisions on those within our annual budget approval process. And our annual budget, of course, is approved by the Board of Education by June 30th each year.
And what happens if it doesn't pass?
We don't like to think about that, Mary. We would have the opportunity to come back to the voters prior to losing an actual levy. That always has to be considered when you're doing millage, renewal, millage election planning. As I've stated, ultimately a 12% reduction in funds means reductions in staff and programming, because the state will not make up the difference if we don't have a current non-homestead millage. We believe our voters know the importance of this to the district and will utilize our resources to be informed and get to the polls on or before February 27th.
So we hear about Headley rollbacks on these millages. Vicki, can you help us understand what this means?
Well, I'll give it a shot. The maximum amount of the non-homestead millage is 18 mills, but you'll notice that the ballot is asking for 19.5 renewal. So we ask for more mills so that when we are in a position where we have a rollback, that we can maintain our 18 mills and not lose any of our funding for our per pupil dollars. A Headley rollback occurs when the taxable values within the district increase faster than the rate of inflation. When that happens, we're required to roll back our millage rate. The 19.5 mils allows us to roll back from our original 19.5 mils without reducing our millage rate below the 18 mils we're required to levy to get our full dollars for our funding through the foundation allowance. In 2019, though, we had such a significant rollback that we had levied less than 18 mils. So that does happen occasionally, and had to go to the voters to restore our millage so that we could get our full per pupil funding.
So I think that's interesting, Vicki, because as we planned for this, we kind of went down memory lane, and we intentionally in 2019 renewed, the non-homestead and the sinking fund together. And then we were subject to this rollback, and we actually had to go out in 2021 when we went out for the facilities bond and actually restore the millage.
Correct.
Because we had fallen lower than 18 mils. So sometimes that's really hard for people to understand the notion of, well, if you can only levy 18 mils, why would you ask for more? And that's the purpose of the 19.5, because even over the course since 2021, we've been subject to some rollbacks. They haven't taken us down to 18 mils.
That's correct.
But we want to just be prepared over 5 years that we wouldn't be subject, and ultimately that we wouldn't have to come back to the voters for another restoration. So that's the purpose of the 19.5.
I appreciate our conversation today and the important information you shared. Are there any final thoughts that you want the voters to know about the non-homestead renewal?
Well, I think it's important to know that the non-homestead millage is not levied on primary residences. It's only levied on businesses, second homes, vacant property, and rental properties.
Yeah, I would really emphasize what Vicki said there about the fact that our primary homeowners do not pay this tax. And I guess I would also just say that we believe our voters know the importance of this to the district and really our community as a whole. And I'm confident that our voters will utilize the resources we provide, like this podcast, but also help get the word out to others. So we have a lot direct connection to our registered voters who have school-age children, but we also know that there's many more voters who are going to vote on or before February 27th. So the resources are there, and we think that our voters, really inform themselves to be ready. Voting has never been more accessible in the state of Michigan. Through no reason absentee ballots, you can walk up on the day of the election and fill out an application to be an absentee voter and get your ballot. And now, for the first time with this presidential primary, they're extending in-person voting at your local voting precincts, I believe, for 9 days prior to February 27th. So your local clerk's, offices are going to make that decision. But if you're one of those people that's traditionally, you want to vote in person, and you want to do it on the actual day, but there's also going to be availability to do that in person ahead of time. So we just think it's never been more easy, and we really want people to get registered and then ultimately exercise their right to vote on or before February 27th.
And where can voters find additional information about the millages?
So our website is a great source. If you go to our homepage, romeok12.org, you're going to see that election tab with our little election logo in the top left corner. You click on that, and we'll continue to add resources, these podcasts, other information on each of our proposals. You can contact me directly at the administration building, 586-752-0200, or via email at todd.robinson@romeok12, that's the number 12.org. Also, our building principals are available, especially for those families that have school-age kids, our voters that have school-age kids. Our principals are a good resource as well. So we're available. We believe and support transparency, and the website's there on demand, but we're also, happy to speak with people directly if they desire.
Thank you. And I want to thank our district leaders and all of you that will take the time to listen to this podcast. Please be sure to listen to our complimentary podcast on the sinking fund millage renewal that will also be on the February 27th presidential primary ballot. Thank you, and go Bulldogs.